What is up, guys? Zach Ginn here, and in today's video, I'm gonna go over something that I've been getting so many comments and questions over, and this is the TRACED Act. That is right, I'm gonna give you the most complete, up-to-date information on the TRACED Act when it comes to wholesaling real estate for your SMS text blasting and your cold calling for real estate wholesaling. I'm telling you, I'm gonna give you the information you need to know and how you can stay as legally protected as possible in your wholesaling business. Again, guys, I am not a lawyer, CPA, financial advisor. This is not legal advice at all, but I can just tell you what wholesaling is gonna be looking like in the future with the TRACED Act and what you can do to become as successful as possible in real estate wholesaling with the TRACED Act. So before we get into it, before I actually share with you all this information, remember, you need to smash that like button and subscribe to get more free value from me. So let's get into it. The TRACED Act. So what is the TRACED Act? You guys might not know what the TRACED Act is, or maybe you're one of the people that had just DMing me like crazy. I'm getting so many questions about the TRACED Act. So the TRACED Act is basically the Telephone Robocall Abuse Criminal Enforcement and Deterrence Act. And this is basically a good thing. Now, before you go after me like, oh my gosh, Zach, this is going to change everything for real estate wholesaling, not really. And yes, there's going to be some changes with this, but with everything, there's of course going to be changes. So this isn't something that's going to destroy cold calling or SMS forever. This is stuff that's honestly pretty common sense, and if you go with the flow on it, you could still find motivated sellers and your ROI can be the same, and it's actually not a bad thing. So what is the reason for the TRACED Act? Is this a certain act that's only going after wholesaling people at all and they're just trying to go after us, or what is it? So the TRACED Act was actually passed in 2019, and this act it basically had one sole purpose possible, and that's to get rid of spam calling. So what is spam calling? Well, if you own a phone and you live in the United States of America, I guarantee you might get one call a day or maybe one a week that's saying that you get a call from your local area code, you answer it, and it says, please call back for warranty auto deed, or like something like that. And it's the most annoying thing possible. There's a robot literally dialing a phone and calling you, and the message is a pre-recorded message. So literally there's no human interaction at all. It's not a real phone call. It's an actual robot calling you, and that's a robocall. And they're spam like crazy. I get like 3 or 4 of those a day. They are so annoying. I absolutely hate them. And those are the reasons why the TRACED Act is getting implemented. Not because people are saying these wholesalers keep calling me. No, this act is mostly going after robocalls. For real estate wholesaling, we have to be compliant with this legislation. With the implementation of the TRACED Act, we're going to have to be compliant with the Secure Telephone Identify Revisited and signature-based handling of assertive information using tokens, aka stir and shaken. Now, that means we're most likely going to have to register and identify our phone numbers. So before I get super confusing in this, let's take a step back. Let's go to the FCC's website here and see what they're talking about when it comes to the TRACED Act. Because the TRACED Act is going to be implemented by the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission. Now, the TRACED Act, basically from Congress, gives the Federal Communications Commission new tools to fight unwanted and often illegal robocalls, the top consumer complaint reported to the FCC annually. Now, what does this mean? That means that the FCC is basically going to be going after unwanted and often illegal robocalls from the top complaints annually. Do you think the FCC is getting complaints from you as the top one, or the ones that are super spam everywhere? If you're a lower level caller and you're not doing millions and millions of calls every single day, you're not going to be on the FCC's radar here. So again, I'm not a lawyer. You definitely have to do everything that's legally required by the government. I am not going to tell you not to. Everything that you have to do has to be compliant and legal. The FCC has worked hard to meet the TRACED Act's deadline to provide Americans with new protection against unwanted robocalls. Now, reading this, remember, what is the most common phrase being used here is robocalls. Robot calls. Wholesaling, when we're calling, we're not robots. We're actually humans. The point of the TRACED Act, which is, in my opinion, pretty common sense legislation, is they're trying to stop robocalling mostly. And robocalling is the issue here. We're not robocalling. So really, we're not huge, big targets at this. So there's definitely ways for us to keep doing what we're doing. Really here, if we go here, they're going after robocalls and texts, caller ID spoofing, call blocking, and one-ring phone scams. Caller ID spoofing is, this is actually kind of crazy that this is possible, but I can call you on your mother's phone number and pretend like I'm her, and it'll just say mom on your contacts. That's pretty scary, right? Someone could actually pretend to be your phone number on there. That's called caller ID spoofing. That's probably not really good. And people use that if they're in the Philippines, they can actually change their phone number to a personal one, and they don't have to buy any phone numbers. And you basically can hide the phone number there. They're getting rid of that. One-ring phone scams are the worst. That means they'll call you with one ring, you'll answer it, and they'll take it off and say, this person answers their phone, and they put them in a glossary there. So definitely good that a lot of these are the scam ones. This is the often illegal ones. And for something to be illegal, it has to be against the Telephone Communication Protections Act of 1991. And that's against auto dialing and things like that. Now, auto dialing using like a batch dialer is completely illegal. And they've actually shown in legislation that that is legal, and the type of calling using like a Zen call or a Mojo, that stuff is all legal because there's actually a human behind it. It's not a robot actually calling. And so now we know that, we can talk about the stir and shaken. So the stir and shaken caller identification framework basically will mean that they will have to verify that if your phone number is actually owned by you and you're not call spoofing or using a phone number that's not yours, you have to identify that this is our phone number and we're actually using it. This is a human calling it. Pretty smart. And really what the point of this is to make sure that it's actually a human calling and not a robot going after and making thousands of calls with that phone number right at once. You're calling one person at a time. So it's pretty good per phone number, more or less. That's how I've seen my research on this. So again, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen with this legislation. There's a lot of unknowns. Every single month they're implementing new parts about this. So this video could be old within 4 months, or it could be brand new within 4 months. And really, your local wholesaling guru probably doesn't know any more than me on this. So there's so many unknowns when it comes to wholesaling with this act. But the stir and shaken thing is really going to confirm that your phone number is actually yours and it's not a robot actually calling. So what it's going to do is trace your phones. Make sure that you're the actual person calling it. So it's going to trace your calls more. This is really going to get rid of RVMs, and it's going to get rid of those fake IDs and the spoofing. This means something like a Google Voice probably still going to be working very well for you. So if you're doing a very low level amount of calling, you should be fine on Google Voice. Now, if you start doing a high volume of texts or a super big high volume of calls, this is probably new, but a lot of your 12-line and 10-line dialers out there are probably going to get rid of it. So I've been telling you to use a 12-line dialer forever. With this new legislation, it's probably best to use a 3-line triple dialer. The less calls are probably better, and it'll be less spam. And if you're doing a lot of high volume, you're going to have to register your EIN and your business phone number with the phone numbers you're using, which you really don't want to be doing. So having more phone numbers will definitely help you out, and also having less volume. And how will someone know if you're spam or not? So like the carriers, this new implementation is actually going to start tracking your phone number once it's in the stir and shaken system. What are they actually going to track? So if you're tracking KPIs on their key performance indicators for the calling or texting is bad, you're going to be flagged as spam likely as soon as possible, and your results are going to go down crazy. And it's actually not bad. This KPIs will stop robocalls from happening and actually help humans doing it. And this is very advanced stuff, but it's actually going to really help us out and really help against the robocalling. So the most important part that we need to understand is when we're calling, we have to make sure that we're within these parameters so our calls are actually not being blocked or used as spam, and the government doesn't flag us as an illegal spammer. What we need to understand is our call lengths have to actually be longer than a robocall. A robocall is going to be 4 or 5 seconds, and they're just going to hang up, and then they're going to be like, okay, this phone number keeps getting called for 3 seconds. No call is going longer than the 3 seconds average. This is a spam. We're going to cut it off. It's going to be a spam likely. Cut it out. Versus us, we're going to have to make sure our average phone call length is over 10 to 20 seconds, which isn't hard if we're having 5-minute conversations with actual motivated sellers. And if we're human, it won't flag it, and we should be fine. So that's one of the most important things. The one takeaway you should take away from this video is make sure when you're cold calling, make sure the average length of your calls are as long as they can. It's over that 10 to 20 second threshold. Now remember guys, dialing is still safe. You can still use a triple line dialer. If you're using batch dialer that's 10 lines, bring it back under to 3 lines and you should be fine there. But dialing is safe. You actually have a VA doing this where you're actually calling yourself, you are completely compliant and you're fine. It's the illegal calls that are going to be bad. And the last one here is they're going after those car warranty people. The people are huge, big spammers. So don't even worry about it too much. Who are they really going to go after? The big spammer or you? Now, the one thing you need to be changing probably more on this is you're going to have to not be this big hedge fund company anymore when you're using your cold calling or your texting. You're going to have to do the mom and pop approach. Now, the mom and pop approach is going to do a lot better. You're not going to be attacked from the FCC from doing this approach versus if you actually do it on the approach that you're this big hedge fund that buys thousands of properties and you have all this money, you're going to get attacked. You might get reported. It's not going to be good. But if you go out there, act like the mom and pop person, like, hey, I'm just a regular dude just trying to buy a property. Are you looking to sell it? That's not going to get flagged. And you should be as safe as possible doing this. So that's really it, guys. Now remember, it's best here, you have to use a compliant company. Don't be using a random company for your services, especially when it comes to this stuff. You don't want to be messing with Uncle Sam. That is the last person you want to mess with here when it comes to your wholesaling and marketing because they can shut you down. Use some companies in wholesaling that's trusted and that will follow the compliance of this stuff. I know for a fact that's why I use Batch. And they are completely compliant with the TCPA and with the new TRACED Act. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm telling you, this TRACED Act is not going to affect wholesaling profitability at all. You need to be a little more shifty. It's not the end of the world, but again, wholesaling is not a static thing. There's always going to be small changes that you have to get your trajectories over. But remember, I'm here to help you every step of the way here. At Flip with Rick here, I release a video every single day where I will hold your hand and show you the whole wholesaling process. If anything changes, I will affect it and change it for you. These wholesaling guru courses will do one video that was 4 years ago and they won't change it. Every video I do and every content that I share changes every single time. I really appreciate you guys watching this content. If you get any value out of it, remember, smash that like button and subscribe. I can't wait to see your success with real estate wholesaling. Have a blessed day.